It's September 13th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's trip to Russia. The regime's leader said his visit shows how seriously North Korea is taking its strategic ties with Russia, before he is widely believed to hold summit talks with Vladimir Putin at a space launch center as early as today. And the U.S. is keeping close tabs on the two countries' much speculated arms deal, sending defense and commerce officials to South Korea this week to discuss ways to penalties for the weapons negotiations. South Korea's national football team secured its first win under head coach Jurgen Klinsmann by defeating Saudi Arabia 1-0 on Tuesday. The Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin summit is looking likely to be held at a Russian spaceport, possibly today. And the North Korean leader is calling his Russia trip as a means of highlighting strategic ties with Moscow. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Lee Dae-hyun with the details.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said his first visit to Russia in 4 years was a distinctive expression to highlight the strategic importance of Pyongyang-Moscow relations. The train that Kim had taken to travel to Russia arrived in the border city of Hasan on Tuesday at 6 a.m. local time, according to the Northeast state-run Korean Central News Agency on Wednesday. Kim was greeted by Russian central and local government officials, including the Minister of Natural Resources and Environment and the governor of Primorsky Krai. The officials said that they were sent by Russian President Vladimir Putin to welcome Kim. The North Korean leader, after his arrival, said that he's glad to visit Russia for his first time in 4 years. KCNA reported that Kim had departed to his next spot after receiving a welcome gift, but did not reveal where exactly that place was. But citing Russian sources, Japan's Kyodo News reported that the place where Kim will meet with his Russian counterpart will likely be a Russian spaceport, the Vostochny Cosmodrome in the Amur Oblast in the Russian Far East. It also added that the two leaders are expected to visit an aircraft plant in Komsomolsk on Amur after their talks. This comes as it was announced that Putin would visit the spaceport after a session at the Eastern Economic Forum. Analysts say that the meeting at the spaceport symbolizes the two leaders' intention to show their will for military cooperation, especially in the space technology sector. The aircraft plant, too, is also relatable to their potential military ties, as the plant produces a range of fighter jets, including high-tech fifth-generation jets. A shipyard to launch attack submarines is also located in that area, too, which could interest the North as it recently launched its first tactical nuclear submarine earlier this month. More concerns are about to come, with close military ties between the two appearing to be just around the corner. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
And Washington says it will not hesitate to take action if Pyongyang does provide weapons to Moscow. And U.S. defense and commerce officials are also coming to Seoul to discuss the arms deal as well as export controls. Lee Seung-ja has more.
Washington says it will not hesitate to take action if Pyongyang does forge ahead with providing weapons to Moscow as speculated, following the upcoming summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Tuesday, any arms transfer from North Korea to Russia would violate multiple UN Security Council resolutions.
And we, of course, have aggressively enforced our sanctions against entities that fund Russia's war effort, and we will continue to enforce those sanctions and will not hesitate to impose new sanctions if appropriate.
When asked if Russia can unilaterally lift UNSC resolutions against North Korea, following comments from the Kremlin that Russia may be willing to discuss the lifting of sanctions currently imposed on North Korea with Pyongyang if necessary, Miller simply said no, adding that Russia cannot take unilateral actions related to the United Nations Security Council. Meanwhile, U.S. defense and commerce officials are set to visit Seoul to discuss the possible arms deal between North Korea and Russia with South Korean government officials. According to the Pentagon, Acting Undersecretary for Defense for Policy Sasha Baker will visit South Korea later this week to take part in the fourth meeting of the Extended Deterrence Strategy and Consultation Group, where she will also meet government and military leaders to discuss the current security environment. U.S. Deputy Secretary of Commerce Don Graves will also visit Seoul next week to discuss ways to strengthen export controls currently in place against Russia. The U.S. is actively pushing for ways to respond to a North Korea-Russia arms deal, as U.S. Deputy Special Envoy for North Korea, Jung Pak, said Monday that the Kim-Putin meeting might be the final step before the countries strike an arms deal. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
So Kim Jong-un's Russia trip reflects North Korea's desire to keep things tight with Russia. The regime's leader himself said so. Let's talk more about the upcoming Kim-Putin summit with Dr. Xiao Yu this morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Dr. Poo, North Korea-Russia relations appear to be quite important to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at the moment. What's your take on Kim's statement ahead of the Kim-Putin summit?
I think North Korea leader prioritize North Korea's ties with Russia because the two countries badly need each other right now because Russia need weapons from North Korea and North Korea need financial aid, foreign food aid, and also advanced space and military technology. I think these two countries are also isolated by the West. I think that showcase how much they need each other.
Right, they are really dependent on each other more than ever. Now, the Kim-Putin summit is widely believed to take place in the Amur region, where a Russian spaceport is located. Now, why do you think they've chosen this place out of all the possible spots? I mean, what significance does the place hold?
This showcase military cooperation, particularly in space technology, might be an important component of their cooperation. And for Putin, he wants to showcase Russia is still a superpower in military and space technology, despite all the international sanctions. And North Korea really need to learn something about the space technology from Russia. So this might showcase maybe space technology, military technology is a key component of their dialogue.
Right, especially when North Korea is so desperate to make its first spy satellite launch successful, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And in the meantime, the Chinese media outlets, they're saying U.S. sanctions have made the North and Russia become closer than ever. Dr. Poo, is that so? I mean, how does China see Pyongyang and Moscow tightening their ties and deepening military cooperation beyond their friendship?
I think North Korea's relationship with Russia, goes back to the Soviet Union era, like the Cold War era. So it's beyond the current sanctions. But the Western sanctions definitely further strengthen sort of the need of these two countries. They have no other options. No other good options in terms of economic, military cooperation. So I think the sanctions definitely narrow their options and push them closer together. From Beijing's perspective, I think Beijing should be very prudent, very cautious. On the one hand, China has strong ties with both Russia and North Korea, but these are two partners that sometimes also regarded as a strategic liability for China. Sometimes North Korea could be a troublemaker for China in regional diplomacy and other issues. I think Russia is the same. I think my sense is that Beijing might take a very cautious attitude toward the potential trade arms deals between North Korea and Russia.
Right, China may be walking on eggshells, but do you think Kim-Putin talks will actually redefine or sharpen the partnership between North Korea, Russia, and China? Is the partnership that all the three sides really want?
I think the conventional commentators, especially from Western medias, often put Russia, China, North Korea together as sort of like an anti-Western club. But my observation is that these two countries are different. Russia and North Korea are taking a much more confrontational approach toward the West. China is different to some degree because China has much broader economic ties with the West. As a UN Security Council permanent member, China must be very cautious regarding any violation of UN Security Council resolutions regarding North Korea. So I think China must be very careful. I think North Korea and Russia are taking much more confrontational approach.
Right, and especially when China has the least to get out of that partnership.
Exactly.
And the Kremlin also said the leader Putin will meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping within the year. Why do you think Russia has decided to make that announcement like now when Kim Jong-un is visiting?
I think this is showcase that Putin is very isolated internationally. I think he is very desperate to show that he still has powerful friends in case of China's top leader Xi Jinping. And also China is planning to host the third international forum of BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. China has already invited Putin. So I think Putin is definitely visiting Beijing, but this shows that Putin is really very desperate to demonstrate he still has some international friends, including China's top leaders.
Right. Dr. Pu, before I let you go, if, the U.S. has warned of slapping more sanctions and possibly export controls on Russia if North Korea and Russia do make those arms deals. Now, do you think those sanctions will actually help the two countries stop from making those negotiations?
I think definitely the United States will upgrade some kind of sanctions. But unfortunately, I think the real effects will be very limited because number one, these countries are already on multiple sanction lists. And the number two, regarding UN Security Council resolution, anything related to that also largely depend on how strict China will implement that. I think in terms of implementation, I think there's a lot of challenges going forward.
Definitely. All right, Dr. Pu, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You have a good evening.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you.
The earthquake death toll in Morocco has exceeded 2,900 now. The country was especially vulnerable to such a natural disaster, given the nature of the earthquake and poorly built buildings. Our Yoon tells us more.
A rare massive earthquake that hit Morocco was the deadliest to strike the North African country in 120 years. The magnitude 6.8 quake, which sent people scrambling out of their beds in terror and turned villages into rubble last Friday night, left thousands dead and injured, with the death toll likely to rise farther. The epicenter of the quake that was felt all over the country was located 75 kilometers southwest of the city of Marrakesh, a mountainous rural area near the Atlas Mountains that was not usually known for active temblors. So what exactly caused it?
The mechanism of the Morocco quake was different from other earthquakes. It occurred as tectonic plates under Africa and Eurasia collided with a phenomenon called reverse fault, where the edge of the rock on one side of a fault slips under the other.
During the earthquake, the edge that lies towards the mountain slid over the other, pushing the mountain side up, a knock-on consequence of the tension between the African and Eurasia plates that built up over time. As the quake occurred in a mountainous area, damage was more extensive due to landslides. One of the reasons behind the extensive damage was the construction quality of the buildings. According to Reuters, rescuers said the traditional mud brick houses crumbled, reducing the chances of finding survivors.
After structural standards are met, the government should focus on early earthquake alerts. Utilizing seismological observations can make a big difference by providing an initial warning. Individuals should also remember to stay in a building while there's still movement and to quickly find a safe way out when it stops.
Experts also added that while Morocco's earthquake was hard to predict, governments need to invest in buildings designed to withstand earthquakes in order to minimize damage and casualties despite the cost. Yoon, Arirang News.
President Yoon is likely to name new ministers of defense, culture, and gender equality on Wednesday, speeding up replacements following the defense minister's resignation the day before. According to a presidential official, the top office has been angling for a minor cabinet reshuffle, with Yoon having been briefed on pending issues following his return from a week of summit meetings in Indonesia and India. To lead defense, People Power Party lawmaker and former Army Lieutenant General Shin Won-sik is likely a candidate. For culture, Yoo In-chun, the former minister and recently appointed presidential advisor for culture, is reportedly up for the job. As for the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, Kim Heng, a former spokesperson and director of Korea Gender Equality Education Promotion Agency, is considered the top candidate. The South Korean national football team defeated Saudi Arabia 1-0 on Tuesday, giving head coach Jurgen Klinsmann the first win since taking charge. Playing at St. James Park in Newcastle in England, South Korean striker Cho Kyu-sung headed in the match's only goal in the 32nd minute, ending the Taeguk Warriors' 5-game winless streak. It's a vital win for both the team and Klinsmann, as the head coach has been under fire for both his questionable commitment to the job and his tactics. South Korea plays 2 more friendlies at home next month, Tunisia on October 13th and Vietnam on October 17th. D-10 until the start of the Hangzhou Asian Games in China. A 1,000-strong Korean squad will take part, with athletes aged from 11 to over 70 eager to show what they've got. Our Song Yu-jin has the story.
With just a little over a week left until the Hangzhou Asian Games begin, Team Korea gathered on Tuesday for an inaugural ceremony. While athletes for each sport have already been selected, this ceremony marks the official launching of the national team. There, athletes showed their determination and competitive spirit, from the youngest to the oldest.
I'm honored to be the youngest on the national team, but I don't want to stop here. I want to win a medal and promote Korean chess to the world.
Competing in the Asian Games is like a surprise gift to me. I'm eager to show everything I've prepared until now.
More than 700 athletes and coaching staff participated in the ceremony. Park Bo-gyun, South Korea's Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism, delivered President Yoon Suk-yeol's message that the athletes' unwavering determination and passion would undoubtedly resonate with the Korean people and bring them joy. Team Korea, in return, promised to do their best.
We hope that the sweats and toil of our athletes won't be defined by the colour of medals. It would be great if those at home find joy in athletes giving their all and leaving it all out there. We also hope that lesser-known sports can gain more recognition.
South Korea is sending a record number of 11,140 athletes and team officials in 39 sports to the 16-day games. The goal is to rank 3rd out of 45 participating countries in the overall medal ranking, as it did 5 years ago in Jakarta. As anticipation builds and excitement mounts, all that's left now is Team Korea to showcase its skills and dedication. 송유진, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin in eastern Libya, where more than 5,000 people are believed to be dead and another 10,000 are missing following devastating floods. And that's according to figures from Libya's eastern government on Tuesday. It comes after heavy rains over the weekend caused rivers to swell and 2 dams to collapse near the city of Derna. The resulting floods hit the city hardest, washing away entire neighborhoods, downing phone lines and carrying debris into streets. A quarter of the city is thought to have been wiped out. Tens of thousands of military personnel have been deployed, and some foreign aid has also arrived. But the destruction has made it difficult for rescue workers to enter the city, as well as other affected areas. In the United States, Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has launched an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden, and this is ahead of the 2024 presidential election. Announced on Tuesday, it will look into allegations of abuse of power, obstruction and corruption by the president. Republicans have investigated Biden since January, but have yet to find evidence to support their claims against the president. But they have found dealings from the president's son, Hunter Biden, that they have called questionable. The White House has responded, calling the investigation extreme politics at its worst. It comes as McCarthy is facing pressure from right-wing House Republicans to investigate the Biden family. Now, a Russian passenger plane was forced to make an emergency landing in a cornfield in Siberia after one of its hydraulics systems failed. None of the 170 people on board were injured in the incident on Tuesday. The Ural Airlines Airbus A320 was on its way from Sochi to Omsk when pilots noticed a hydraulic system fault and chose to land in the nearby field. Loss of the hydraulics system can sometimes lead to a loss of flight control. Russia's aviation agency has launched an investigation into the crash landing and has suspended the flight crew. And Russian aviation experts say that the landing may have been unnecessary, as the plane should have had backup systems. Ural Airlines has also denied that it cannot do maintenance on its planes due to sanctions on Russia that limit access to spare parts. And finally, a precious Vincent van Gogh painting that was stolen in March 2020 has been returned, covered in bubble wrap inside an IKEA bag. Now, the 139-year-old painting was handed over to Dutch art detective Arthur Brand on Monday at his home from a tipster not involved in the artwork's theft. The tipster handed over the masterpiece in exchange for anonymity. The painting, known as the Parsonage Garden at Nuenen in spring, is an early piece by Van Gogh. It was stolen while on temporary exhibition at the Singer-Laren Museum near Amsterdam. The thief was eventually arrested and sentenced in 2021 after the painting had already exchanged hands. But the conviction meant that the painting had lost value and was risky to possess, leading to its return.
Good morning. It looks to be a rainy Wednesday. Rain clouds are dropping showers to central parts of the country this morning, while parts of east of Gangwon-do province is under heavy rain alerts, getting 20 to 40 millimeters an hour of downpours. East of Gangwon-do is forecast to receive heavy rainfall into tomorrow at dawn. Expect to see up to 100 millimeters of showers if you're there. The rest of the country will see 10 to 60 millimeters along with thunder and lightning. Now, today's unexpected nationwide rainfall brings early autumn heat wave relief to the country for the day. Highs will be 3 to 7 degrees lower than Tuesday afternoon. Seoul will be topping out at 24. Daegu will go up to 27 degrees Celsius this afternoon. This round of rain continues into tomorrow morning, and then another band of rain will return to central regions from Friday into Sunday. However, those in certain parts of the country need to keep an umbrella handy. On and off rain will continue through Sunday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Thursday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.